Hello everyone and welcome to another Tempo Strategy Legends of Runeterra deck spotlight. The recent patches have brought buffs to not only Lee Sin, but also Bastion, bestowing onto the format what might be one of Runeterra's most powerful combo decks. The archetype has an abundance of card draw, as well as decent stall tools, which help it survive long enough to set up its devastating lethal setup. Before we get into the video, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel as well as hit the bell to stay up to date with more Tempo Strategy content. Targon Lee is a strategy built completely around its namesake champion. The deck aims to get a leveled up Lee Sin into play, then equip him with Zenith Blade. With the support of other spells, Lee will become a near unkillable unit on the board who will beat any unit in a one-on-one fight. The first thing to understand about the Lee Sin combo is that safely getting Lee Sin into play and keeping him alive is your #1 priority. If you think it is likely the opponent will be able to remove Lee when you play him, then do not take the risk. Lee is necessary to win the game, and you may not draw the second one. The second thing you must understand is that Lee Sin is a very reactive deck. The deck doesn't have any hard removal, and is instead just trying to stall the opponent out. The deck must play reactively due to this, since if the Lee player gets too far ahead of themselves, they may end up putting themselves at risk to enemy removal or aggression. Patience is key. A powerful way to control the speed of the game is to use burst passes. A burst pass is when you cast a single burst spell, then pass priority to the opponent. This allows you to cast a spell, but more importantly, if the opponent decides to not play a response, it gives you the choice of closing the turn if you feel the board is stable. Now that we've established how Lee wants to play, let's get an understanding of the deck's core spells. Looking at the list, you will quickly notice that the deck has an abundance of cycling. Guiding Touch, Pale Cascade, and Behold the Infinite will all cheaply trigger Lee Sin, while also refunding the card it costs. Deep Meditation acts as the deck's heavy card advantage spell that with a little effort will draw you 2 spells for only 3 mana. Exclusively drawing spells from Deep Meditation is important, as it can help you find additional card draw or other haymaker spells such as Control Tools or Zenith Blade. Outside of raw card cycle, the deck has an assortment of spells that allow it to control the pace of the game completely. Deny and Bastion allow you to counter key spells that the opponent might cast, while Concussive Palm will buy you time to set up the win condition. Hush is like the deck's emergency button, which will often be able to shut down enemy threats for the turn if they invest too much into it. Outside of Eye of the Dragon, who acts as an essential wall for combating aggression, the deck's followers all fall under 2 categories. They either make gems or they invoke. Gift Giver and Mentor of the Stones are the deck's gem makers. Gems are incredibly important, as they not only level Lee up cheaply, but also grant its target power and healing. Gift Giver is a good enough blocker in the early game, while Mentor of the Stones can be used to support Lee Sin, accelerating him to his unstoppable late game. Spacey Sketcher and Solari Priestess give the deck access to a wide range of effects that it otherwise would never have. Of course, the best card to choose off of Invoke will change from game to game. We can discuss the ideal picks in your average game. Ideally, when playing Spacey Sketcher, you will be pitching a gem to its effect. She will give you access to a handful of different effects, and many of them end up being useful. Moonsilver is likely the most powerful of her choices, as it is not only a free spell on its own, but will allow you to cheat out other spells, even potentially baiting an opponent into deny when you only had 3 mana open. The Serpent and the Messenger are both reasonable for fighting for the board. Equinox is a powerful pick against specific archetypes. For example, it lines up great into Wording Stones out of ramp decks and They Who Endure. Unlike Spacey Sketcher, Solari Priestess has clear best picks. Written in Stars is in most situations the best choice, as it acts as extra copies of Lee Sin. Falling Comet is a solid pick for removing threats such as the Leviathan or the Infinite Mind Splitter. In some games, the lifesteal generated by the Golden Sister can also be game-winning. How do you mulligan with Targon Lee? If it wasn't already clear, your absolute first priority should be finding Lee Sin. Without him, the deck doesn't really do anything productive. In most circumstances, you will be tossing away everything, exclusively looking for Lee Sin. That said, there are some other cards that have their time to shine in the mulligan. Against aggressive decks, you should always be looking for Eye of the Dragon. Gift Giver and Spacey Sketcher are also acceptable plays in the early game, since they can block 1 health units well. If your hand already has Lee Sin, you you can even consider keeping Mentor of the Stones. If you are attacking on evens, curving out Mentor of the Stones into Lee Sin is one of your more powerful openers if you can set it up. If you are facing a slow matchup but do not have Lee, consider keeping Solari Priestess as it can find you written in stars. Often the early game for Targon Lee is mostly uneventful. You will generally bank spell mana and put a small unit or two onto the board. Just because you have a turn 1 unit does not mean it is correct to play it. Consider for a moment Pale Cascade. If you are given the opportunity to play a unit before your opponent's attack, you can set up an early Pale Cascade to swing tempo. This play is only possible on turn 2 if you bank spell mana on turn 1. The early turns of the game is where Targon Lee is at its weakest, as the deck can struggle to fight for the board. Turn 4 has come around and you should have some spell mana in the bank. Identify the removal tools the enemy deck has access to and ask yourself, if I play Lee Sin here, will he survive this turn and can I protect him next turn? If the answer is yes, get Lee into play. If the answer is no, find another play or simply do nothing if the enemy is not threatening you enough where you are forced to act. Once you get Lee Sin into play, your next goal will be to set him up with Zenith Blade. Once again, do not play the Zenith Blade if it comes at the risk of your Lee Sin. Find a way to navigate your turn so that you are keeping the enemy at bay while you continue to work Lee closer to a level up. Do not feel obligated to attack on all of your turns. Sometimes the opponent will not play their powerful unit until you attack. If you just pass the turn, they can never play their strong units. This deck aims to close the game out by around turn 8. Ideally, you have gotten in a few points of chip damage. If you have managed to survive this long, get Lee leveled and into play, and equip a Zenith Blade onto him, and you should be able to bring the game to a close. With just a few buff spells, you will be able to bring Lee to upwards of 8 power. Combined with his Dragon's Rage and Overwhelm, Lee will be striking the Nexus twice. This means that you can set up a true OTK if you can get Lee up to 10 power. Not only will you be able to set up burst kills with access to spells such as Deny and Bastion, once the kill is in motion, you can guarantee that it will be ending the game. Targon Lee is one of the most powerful combo decks to exist in Runeterra. Unlike slower combo decks like Karma Ezreal, Targon Lee is able to set up a win condition as early as turn 7 while protecting its win condition with control magic. The recent buff to Bastion has taken the archetype from playable to absolutely dominant. If you have not tried the archetype yet, you definitely should before Riot makes changes to some of the deck's powerhouses, such as Bastion. Have you experienced the might of the dragon? Let us know in the comments below, and if you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our tempo strategy content. Thanks for watching!